Welcome to the Prosperity Gap, where we discuss the financial gap that exists between where we are and where we should be. It's time to bridge that gap.
Hey, Prosperity Nation, welcome back for another week of the Prosperity Gap. You can see I'm in a new location again today. We're still trying to figure this out. In fact, there may be some echoing going on. We thought we could bring some sound panels into my home office and be able to solve the problem, but it sounds like that's not exactly what's happened. So maybe by next week, we'll have it completely figured out. But in the circumstances we're in, we are trying to make sure we're getting you good content, good information to help you during these crazy times, get yourself to a point that you can bridge that financial gap in your life between the life you're currently living and the one that you should be. Today's show is being brought to you by eTrends Tax and Accounting. If you've not yet got your taxes filed, or if you have questions regarding all the stimulus packages, please go to eTrends Group. They can help you fill out the paperwork. They can help for the loans and the grants. They can help you better understand what's available to you, as well as help make sure you get your taxes filed correctly. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with the show today. Very excited to have with me today, Courtney from Modern FImily. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Good, good. So you guys have taken an interesting twist with your name, trying to get the financial independence inside of the family structure. Tell us a little bit about how you came up with this.
Yeah, so it's really mostly a spin on the TV show Modern FImily. So we are a lesbian family, so that's where the modern comes into play. And we're a family in that we have a daughter. And then instead of being Modern Family, we've switched out the A in family with an I. So we're Modern FImily, so because we've reached financial independence. So it's kind of a conglomeration of all three of those things.
But all working together, all making it happen, all trying to get to the same goal, which is really what our listeners are trying to get to, and that's the financial independent lifestyle.
Right. Yeah. It's now that I'm on the side of the financial independence world, it's a great world to be in. That's for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about your journey and what got you to this point in your own life.
Sure. So I started off with $65,000 in student loan debt to my name. I grew up in the States. I'm a dual U.S. Canadian citizen. And so after my undergrad and master's, I had $65,000 to my name. A couple years, and at that point, my goal was to just pay off my student loan debt once I had my first quote unquote big girl job in the real world. So I didn't really know anything about the financial independence movement. I didn't know anything really about investing or anything. I just was very debt averse. I saw my parents go through a lot of turmoil in their finances and their family structure, just in a lot of things over my college years. And so that made me want to be in control of finances and not the other way around. So that was kind of my starting point. And my goal was to just pay off my student loans ASAP. So within 2.5 years, I had paid off those loans. It had totaled $70,000 after interest had accrued. And right around that point is when I met my now wife, and I started saving up for a down payment for the townhouse that we ended up moving into. So she's Canadian, and we were living in Florida at this time. She was down for school, and we were living together for a couple years, and she was not a fan of the heat, humidity, the temperature, the hurricanes, the people, the rain, you name it. She wanted to move back up. So with me being a dual citizen, neither of us needing a work visa just made more sense for us both to be back, for her to move back and me to come up to Canada. So now we are up in just outside Calgary.
In addition to getting married, you also have a child now, is that correct?
Yes. So yeah, fast forward, my wife had student loans to her name. She paid those off. We house hacked our house. We ended up paying off that mortgage in 2.5 years, thanks to roommates. That then funded our townhouse that we now live in Canada. We got married. We had a daughter who's now about 2. So yeah, a lot going on in my life. My wife, she retired early when our daughter was born. So she's been out of work, for the past 2 years, and I work part-time now. I shifted in October of 2019 to a part-time role because we are hopeful to become a family of 4 in the future, hopeful for another child. So we're still saving with that in mind. Obviously, there's a lot of unknowns in the world right now, of course, but we're still very, positive about everything and that's our goal, is to reach financial independence here for our family of four, hopeful family of four, by the time baby number 2 arrives.
Were you both on the same page in this journey when you got started, or was one of you, I mean, obviously it sounds like you were a little further ahead in the journey, but was she as willing to make the commitment, the changes that need to be made to allow it to happen?
Yeah, she was, luckily. We didn't really ever have to have, financial fights or financial struggles of, why are you buying this? Who's spending money here? Where's our money going? We never really had those arguments or really conversations, really. When we met, she was finishing up her second degree down in Florida. And so she was living the frugal college lifestyle at the time. So, she could have gotten more student loans out to live in a nicer apartment, let's say, for example, but she decided not to, totally on her own accord. This was before us meeting. And so when she finished school, it just made sense to her too to finish paying off her student loans as fast as possible. So she had about 40,000 to her name that she too paid off in about 2.5 years as well. So we both had very similar mindsets. I'm definitely more interested in personal finance and more passionate about it. I'm the voice, behind our blog and our Instagram and everything. She's more private and tends to, be more reserved in that account. But yeah, we both were on the same page really from the get-go. So that made things very easy. For us, it's always been about travel. Really, that's how everything kind of started. We didn't know about the financial independence movement, or we haven't heard of FIRE, when we first met. And we just more wanted to travel. So we got into travel hacking at an early age. Back in 2010 is when I first discovered that. So it was more, we were planning for a trip, then going on that trip and hacking it along the way, whether we were camping or staying in an Airbnb or staying with friends, trying to keep our costs down and doing that on repeat. So that was kind of our life, to begin with. And then it was, how can we get to a point where we can quit our jobs and travel for a year? That was our mindset while we were down in Florida, with the ultimate goal a year later to end up in Calgary area. So that was it was still never about retiring earlier. Financial independence was in the picture at that point, but it was more like, let's focus on enjoying this year traveling around the world and being able to come back not knowing what's the next steps are going to be, quit our jobs with nothing lined up. And we ended up traveling for about 6 months. And then I got a job up in the Calgary area. So it was a little shorter than the year, but given the economy up in the Alberta area, it just made sense to take it. So that was like our mindset at the beginning, was travel, 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 travel. And now that we have a kid, it's like, okay, the travel is kind of, calm down a little bit. We still try and do it as much as we can. It's just much more difficult and just a totally different, design behind it. But now it's more, how do we spend more time together as a family? So that's definitely been the shift, once our daughter was born, and well, even beforehand, when my wife got pregnant, and that was the shift at that point.
It sounds like all in all that you've gotten along very well in the financial world, which, like you say, is a big blessing because many people don't. Is there one thing though in your finances that you guys are at pretty big odds with?
Good question. Not really. I mean, we've gotten to a point where we don't spend that much money. Like, we, as a family of 3, we spend $25,000. So, which I think is mind-boggling to most people. A lot of it is because we have the mortgage side taken out because we house hacked a while ago. So neither one of us are big spenders. Really, we're totally fine buying used things, like our cars. Both of our cars are used. We hardly really ever buy new clothes or shoes. I think my wife more so would want to buy like the gym membership than me. Maybe that's the difference. But we buy it, because it's something she values and it's something she uses, and we now use it as a family. So maybe that is like this. I don't see that as a big thing, but I think for the most part, we really do see eye to eye. Like, if there is ever something, that maybe Nick wants to spend something on, let's say, a baby related item, and I've just never heard of it. And was like, wait, what is this? What do we need to be buying? And then I'll read all the reviews. She will too. Like, she is a crazy researcher. So we're both good in that sense, where we're never one to like impulse buy. We'll talk about things and we'll, either we'll talk sense into the other person, or it'll be like, yeah, this makes sense. Let's go ahead and buy it. So it's having that conversation is really important, and not like all of our accounts are joined, so we know what's spending is going on, so we talk about it beforehand. There's nothing that pops up, afterwards, like, what was this? You know what I mean? So having those conversations, I think, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Critical that we have those conversations, critical part about family finance. One of the things we've never really gotten into on this show, and I'd like to get a little deeper with you on this, and that is saving money with children, especially with babies. I know there's a lot of costs. I look back in my own life, and there was a period of time that I had 4 kids under the age of 5 and younger.
Oh
You
my
got to
gosh.
understand, we were living a crazy life, and I thought, this is so expensive. There's so many things I've got to buy. There's so many things that we've got to spend money on. Well, now fast forward 18 years, and those 4 kids are now in college, and those early years seem like nothing compared to the costs that we're spending now. But I do realize that for a young family, it can be a very trying time. Are there things that you guys do in your relationship you feel would help others to really save money when you have children, especially young children in the home?
Yeah, absolutely. So our daughter, she'll be 2 in just a couple weeks, and I keep track of everything. And we have spent, not accounting for her food or her education account. In Canada, it's called the RESP. It's similar to a 529 in the States. Not including those 2 things, we have spent less than $2,000 on everything for her to date. And that includes the nursery, the car seat, the stroller, all of the consumables, diapers, wipes, clothes, toys, books, you name it. Like everything. And you can spend that on a stroller alone, like it's very easy nowadays to get duped into the marketing. It's really kids and weddings. Like people go after those 2 different areas, think you have to spend the biggest and best for this, and you need the best quality this, but we really buy pretty much everything used except for her diapers, of course, her diapers and wipes and her car seat. Those were the new things that we bought new, but otherwise everything we have is either used or hand-me-downs. We use, at least where we are in our town, there's a app called Garage Sale, with a V, like virtual garage sale, essentially. And there's a ton of young parents and young families in the town we live in. So these families that we don't know them, but they will post things for free because they're just trying to get rid of stuff in their house. It's so easy to accumulate things for a little human that they use for weeks, maybe a month or 2, and then they're on to the next thing. They're on to the next size, or they're on to the next activity, right? So no one wants to hold on to these things once they know they're done having kids, whether, that's 1 or 5 kids, right? So hold on to it until they're done. And then we've been able to buy so many things at like a huge discount, like 80-90% off, or free. Most of the things we get are for free. All of her toys, all of her kit, all of her books, all of those are free. But then we've also learned that kids don't have to be that expensive if you don't want them to be. They don't know the difference if they don't have the trendiest toy out there, or the next best thing out there. Like, they don't know. Our daughter wants to play with a muffin tin and a pan. She wants to put water from a cup into a pan, and then, take pom-poms and throw it in there and make a soup. Things like that, like, are not costly at all. And little activities, they just want your love and attention, which is free, right? So I think that's really hard for people to understand. They think they need to buy their children's love and they need to buy their attention, but all they want is to spend that one-on-one time with you. That doesn't come at a cost. We go outside, we go for walks, we play in the snow, all that sort of stuff is free. We'll look at rocks, and we'll go through hikes, and we'll talk about trees, and we'll look at twigs and all that stuff, totally free. So I think it's just the mentality and the mindset that, like, you are not being a bad parent by not spending a lot of money on your child.
Yeah, the reality of it is they'd much rather have you spend the time with them than they would having you spend the time at work trying to pay for everything that you bought them that they'll never remember. And I know that we saw it early on in our lives. And again, something I hadn't really thought about for a long time, but I look at ways that we saved money during that period of time. My mom did as well, but she had passed away at that time, but my wife knew how to make blankets. So she made all of our kids baby blankets. She knew how to make some of their clothes, and so she'd make some of their clothes. She actually would make much of their food rather than buying the little bottles, even as cheap as they may seem. She would actually make it cheaper herself. And a lot of her friends used to give her a bad time. They're like, why are you doing this? This is crazy. Well, now they look at our situation now, and it's like, we did that because we wanted to be financially free. And these type of things allowed us to get there. Well, at the time, it seemed
Right.
like something foolish. Why are you saving 50 cents a dollar? Well, it was 50 cents a dollar every day because that's how often you had to feed these kids. So yeah, it's very interesting to
Yeah.
see what you're saying, how many opportunities you can take to save money. What about diapers and wipes? Is there anything that you found? I know they can get very expensive. Anything you found in your own life that's helped you to save money there?
Well, we were on team reusable diapers to start before our daughter was born. We had bought a pack of 8 of them, and we never got around to using them. Like, for whatever reason, we just had them right in our house, and we just never got around to doing it. So that would be the most cost-effective way, is to be using reusable products. We didn't do that. So we are using Pampers regular diapers. We found coupons at either online. There's an app called Checkout 51. If you save your receipt, essentially pretty much every week they have some sort of diaper on there. You can get, $1 or $2 back on your packs. But like you said, every $1 or $2, a little bit helps every now and then. This is simple, easy to do. We'll also find coupons like at the front of our grocery stores. Sometimes they'll have some, and they may have like a $5 6 months out. So we'll take a couple of those, and we'll get boxes of diapers if we know we're going to go through them. We don't have to just use one. So, be creatively thinking about that. And then for wipes, we are buying our wipes from Costco. We don't have a Costco membership. Our neighbors do, our sister-in-law does. So they'll get the boxes from us, and those tend to be the most cost-effective way to deal with wipes. And then luckily, another cost-saving thing that's happened for us that's have out of our control is our daughter is very eager to be potty trained. So she's potty training pretty early here. She's almost there. So that's obviously helping too, is where, we'll be done with diapers probably sooner than most other parents out there. But, that's something we can't control and just happen to get lucky with.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing that people can do is just do the math. I know for us back in the day that my wife loved Costco diapers. They seemed to be some of the best ones on the market at the time. They were much cheaper than the name brands. So we used Costco diapers at the time, but you need to really do the math because, again, Costco is going to give you a huge package. It's going to cost you more, but does it cost you more per diaper? And if you get coupons or other things that can help you reduce that price. And again, if you don't have a friend, so you've got to go buy a membership now, start calculating that in, because I know for us, when we were that age, there wasn't a whole lot we could have bought that we would have used Costco membership for. There were just too many, the items were too big. They came in too large quantities. So now obviously it's much different as my kids are older, and we had at some point 6 kids in the home, and everything definitely changed substantially. But now we're getting back to that other side. After this year, we'll be my wife and I and 2 boys. Well, at that point, we're obviously not eating as much. We're not using as many other things. So those things change. And I guess that's one of the things, and maybe what you're saying here is we just need to understand these processes will come to an end, that the things we're spending money on, if we can be conservative, that just like potty training, there'll come a time that they'll grow out of those. And then we move on to the next thing and look for opportunities to save money in the next part of life.
Yeah. And you made a really good point too about understanding the unit cost of each item, right? And typically it tends to be the bigger the box, the better the bargain type of thing. But you've got to look and do the math. Sometimes they have it, right on the barcode. It will say, 20 cents per unit or something like that for a diaper. Or it doesn't, and you have to do the math and be like, okay, let's say it's a bag of rice, for example, shifting focus, but same applies to anything. And you can say, okay, this pound of rice is $5. This 2-pound bag of rice is $7. And if you're just looking at the numbers, you're going to say, oh, the $5 one is cheaper than the $7, but you're getting double the amount for less than double the price. Say it could apply to diapers or anything, right? Is looking at that unit price and being aware of what you're actually buying, what quantity you're buying. Yeah.
And my kids all laugh at me because I do it with everything. And the biggest thing I spend money on is junk food and candy, which probably isn't the thing I should be spending money on, but I just really don't spend that much money on most things. I leave that to my wife to buy what we need around the house. They all laugh because I may come home with like 10 of one item because they were just cheaper individually. I've done the math on the ounces and everything. And they're like, Dad, just buy the big bag if you want them. It's like, no, this is much cheaper. Come on, leave me alone.
Yeah. I'd be giving you a high five if you came back.
Yeah, my kids are getting much better. I will tell you, older, obviously, they get educated, and it's happened with all my kids that even our youngest ones now are getting to the point that they're starting to look on the shelf. Oh, Dad, this one's much cheaper. Let's buy it. Where A couple of years ago, it was, oh, there's cheese or there's milk, there's whatever. We're just going to buy it. We don't care what it costs.
Yeah, it's being that mindless consumer, right? Like if for anything, right? It could be something as big as a house or a car. You might get approved for a loan this big, and you're like, okay, I'm going to buy this $500,000 house, or this $50,000 car, when you don't have the income really to support that, even though the bank says you does. And it could be as minor as a candy bar, but it really applies. That mindset applies to every purchase you make, and it is being aware of your purchases. Obviously the bigger purchases you're making, the more mindful and more diligent you can be, the better, the more bang for your buck in that respect. But the principle applies to every purchase you make.
One of the things that you talked about also was the love that you have for travel. Obviously now with the toddler, it's a little different. And because of what's gone on in the world, it's going to be much different for all of us once we come out of this. What are some things that you've used in your own life, or any ideas for those that are traveling with kids to help them save money when they are bringing toddlers or young kids with them on these flights or these trips?
Well, do as much travel as you can before they turn 2, because then, you're paying for their ticket. But we're really big into travel hacking in general. So we try to basically pay nothing for our flights other than the taxes. The travel hacking industry and the credit card churning industry, I guess, or the opportunities, I should say, are way more abundant in the US compared to Canada. Luckily, we still are able to qualify for some US cards, since we have a credit score in the US, we have an address associated to the US. So we're still able to get them. So if you can travel hack, that would be number one. That's like the biggest savings. You can, we've been to close to 30 countries, and we still have over 1 million travel points in our bank. So that's number one, is become comfortable. If you're comfortable using a credit card, of course, you have to be comfortable spending and then paying whatever your credit card bill is in full each time, every month, month after month, consistently. If you can't do that, then ignore everything I just said, right? But if you can, travel hacking for sure is number one. Otherwise, we like to travel to national parks. That's our idea of, fun travel, whether when we're traveling within the US or Canada, we'll go to a different park and then we camp. And so everything's relatively cheap. We get a cheap rental car because it's just used for the week or so or two. It's not your car that you're going to have for the rest of your life, So we'll get, the cheapest car we can find, and we bring our tent, we bring as much stuff as we can with us. And then we'll go camping places, or we'll stay with family and friends places. A lot now, everyone wants to see our daughter, of course. So we'll go to people, or we'll just tell them, even better, tell them to come up to us. Now we're at the point, now that she is turning 2, we're at the point where I'd rather pay for one person, one friend to come up to us. I'd rather pay for that one flight than now have to pay for 3 flights for us to go down to them. So, creatively thinking like that, like maybe we can still see, X person or this family if they come to us instead of us going to them. And even if we're willing to pay for their flight, and then they see that as a win, they see it as a free trip, right? And they're getting to go somewhere different, and you're getting to save money in a sense, because you're now not paying for 3 tickets, you're paying for 1, but you're still getting that bonding with that person, which is the whole point of that trip, really. And you don't have to go through dealing with the airports with a little one either.
It's interesting you mentioned the national parks in there. I actually saw a post a couple hours ago from one of my favorite guests that was on the show, the Financial Panther. He's one of my favorite guests. Kevin had posted that he was in the national park, and just posted just what you're saying. Great way to spend money. And very interesting now you bring that up, because it is a very cheap ticket to see some pretty amazing parts of the country.
Yeah, and you get to see so much. You get to experience so much when you're camping. And a lot of people want to do glamping versus camping, and that's fine. I'm not here to tell you what to do. But I think going and discovering things that are just out of your normal everyday routine, I think it's easy to, go somewhere, go to a city and pay for a ticket to the zoo, or a ticket to the aquarium, or a ticket to this play, or, whatever it is. That's fine too, but those all come at a much bigger cost. You can get just as memorable of an experience by doing something that's much more affordable. Some campgrounds are, some of them are free. Some of them, require reservation, require payment. Most of them do. But there are some, if you do your research, that are free out there. And maybe some of them are first come, first serve type of thing. So if you're willing to be flexible, with where you're going to stay, like for our honeymoon, for example, we went to Iceland and Norway, and we camped all around Iceland. So most people think Iceland is this crazy expensive, country. And we were there for over a month between Norway and Iceland, and we spent less than $2,000 on everything: flight, all of our lodging, food, you name it, because our lodging was free. We used travel points from our credit cards for a couple nights at hotel, and otherwise we camped because there's free camping everywhere in the country. But most people aren't thinking like that, right? So I think, again, it just all comes down to that mindset. And like, really, it's been about like gamifying life and turning life into this money game of like, how can we hack it that we're having the most enjoyable experience? We're not deteriorating that experience, and we're not living, this deprived life. We're still going and doing things, but we're able to save so much money while we're doing it because we've hacked our way through it. For example, some other things is like, for a music concert, for example, rather than paying the full ticket price to go to that concert, why don't you offer to volunteer and be an usher, or, help prep and set it up or something like that. And then you get access to the concert for free. So it's just, thinking like that about everything, like gamifying life about everything you're going to do whenever you're going to spend money. Be like, is there a alternative that's at a lower cost that won't, impact my experience? I'll still have this memorable experience along the way.
Such great advice, such great ideas to give to people. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but Prosperity Nation, I hope you listen to what's being said. A lot of it really is about just putting in the time, realizing that if you will put in the time, that you can get the deals, and realizing too that doing these outside the box things do not mean you're miserable. Courtney's a prime example. I don't think you're sitting here, if you're watching this, that you're saying, hey, this lady is just completely miserable in her life because she's going camping on vacation. I know even for our own family, when we've done those things, especially with young kids, those are some of their most memorable times because it's so different than the world that they're usually living in.
Yeah.
So with that, as we finish up, Courtney, can you let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you if they want to start following you, get more information themselves on your journey and what you're doing to try to help people achieve financial independence?
Yeah, sure. So we blog over at www.modernfimily.com. So modernfimily.com. And we're also on Instagram, and we're also at Modern FImily over there. So yeah, I'd be happy. Please reach out on either platform, both platforms, whichever. I'm always happy to, connect with other like-minded people. So yeah, be happy to chat further with anyone.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on our show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
Prosperity Nation, you have been listening to The Prosperity Gap, where we help you bridge the gap between the life you're currently living and the one you should be. My name's Dave Hall. I'm the host. Today's show has been brought to you by eTrends Tax and Accounting. If you've not yet had a chance to apply for your stimulus loans, if you've not yet had a chance to get your taxes done, please go to etrendsgroup.com where they can help you with all this. If you've not yet had an opportunity to subscribe to our show, please make sure you're subscribing. We want to make sure that you're getting access to this great information on a weekly basis so we can help you improve your life. Look forward to seeing you on the next show.